Hello, and welcome back to Vedic Astrology for Beginners video series. My name is Elena. I'm a professional Vedic astrologer, and in this series, I teach you how to read your birth chart step by step. If you're into astrology, you would like to learn how to read your birth chart, or you're curious but you don't know where to start, you're in the right place, so be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss upcoming videos in this series. So with this video being part of my Vedic Astrology for Beginners video series, we're going to focus on the 9 planets in Vedic astrology in this video. If you're not sure what Vedic astrology is, how different it might be to the more commonly known Western sun sign astrology, I did publish a video where I talk about this, so be sure to check it out, as well as be sure to check out the first video in this series where I teach you how to build and read your birth chart, as you will need the information that contains in there in order to really apply the knowledge in this video and the rest of the series to your chart. So, as previously mentioned, the key elements of the birth chart are the 9 planets, the 12 zodiac signs, and the 12 houses. Today, we're going to be focusing on the planets, their meanings, their associations, as well as their nature. Let's start with a few basic pieces of information about the planets before we deep dive into the meanings and associations of each planet in Vedic astrology. Firstly, planets are the active players of your birth chart, meaning they're the ones who exude influence onto your life and different life areas, not the zodiac signs. Second, each planet is associated with an important person in your life, your spouse, your mother, father, children, and so on. Planets are also associated with different abstract concepts like morality or intuition, as well as oddly specific ones like writers, the internet, or architecture. Planets are the what or the who in your birth chart. Each planet has an inherent nature. Some of them are more benefic, meaning they exude more positive influence, while others are more malefic, meaning the influence they give is more negative and shows up like problems or struggles, illusions, delays, and so on. Some also have a mixed influence, which is something that we're going to cover in this video. In Vedic astrology, the term for the planets is grahas, and graha means the one who grasps or seizes, and that is precisely the way that the planets act, grasping or seizing our mind, our consciousness, and our life. You might ask, what do they seize it with? The answer is the karmic patterns of your past life actions. What you did in your past lives created certain conditions, the consequences or the setup of which you are experiencing now. Now, those conditions are the karmic patterns, and they're represented in the birth chart by the different planets and their meanings. Here's an easy way to think about this. Let's say you have an active lifestyle and you exercise every day, you eat healthy, you don't drink alcohol, you have a healthy and sound sleep, so likely you're enjoying benefits of good health. So the planetary pattern in the birth chart will reveal that you're likely to experience good health and you're likely to do all of those things that keep you healthy throughout your life. You can understand the details of the karmic patterns that someone is going to experience by studying different planets. You can study their condition, how strong they are in the zodiac sign, if there's other influences, positive or negative, as well as whether it is associated with other planets. The condition and the quality of the planet in the birth chart will reveal specific scenarios and specific ways in which the karmic pattern might manifest. In this way, you can see how somebody can become very successful in their career, or somebody might tend to prefer an older partner, or maybe somebody will move a lot in their lifetime or travel a lot for work. These little details, as well as many others, is something that you will be able to study in your and other people's birth charts by the end of this series. Vedic astrology features 9 planets, or grahas, in the birth chart. Let's look at a quick overview into what they are. Firstly, we have the 2 luminaries, the sun and the moon. Then there's also the 5 planets that were visible in the night sky with the naked eye during the time that ancient civilizations lived, when this knowledge was created and then passed on to us. These planets include Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And then last but not least, we also have the two lunar nodes, the north node Rahu, as well as the south node Ketu. Now, these are less known to those of you who might be familiar with astrology or Western astrology already, but they're also an important construct to study in the Vedic astrology. Now, you might be wondering, what about Pluto, Neptune, Uranus? Vedic astrology doesn't study these planets as part of its birth chart system, but that doesn't mean at all that there's going to be a layer of information that you're missing. There's a lot of really different unique features that Vedic astrology offers that offer very precise interpretation of the birth chart and ability to predict major life events. And if you're interested to know what they are, be sure to check out my video about the 5 unique features of Vedic astrology. And now, let's dive into each of the 9 planets in Vedic astrology, starting with the luminaries. Up first, we have the Sun. The Sun is the planet that is most strongly associated with the self in different forms. The Sun represents your physical health, your vitality, your immunity, your ability to fight disease. The Sun also has a spiritual aspect in that it represents your higher self, otherwise known as your soul and your spirit. Its worldly manifestation is the ego. It is the part of you that wants to express yourself, to shine in the outer world. And for this reason, this is the part of you that is connected to creativity, ambition, and this desire for self-fulfillment. Because the Sun is so strongly connected to the self, studying its condition in the person's birth chart will reveal how strong is their sense of self, how they might feel about themselves, as well as what their self-esteem is like and what their confidence levels are. Astronomically speaking, the Sun is the center of the universe. It is the heart of the solar system and the king for all planets, which is why Sun also represents people in power and people in positions of authority, like top-level executives, government officials, C-suite leaders, and other people in positions of power. Now, in your birth chart, the person that is most associated with the Sun is your father or your father figure. The Sun also shows your relationship with masculinity. The zodiac sign that the Sun is in shows through which qualities you express yourself. Now, the house of the birth chart that the Sun is placed in is an area of your life where it's very important that you find fulfillment. And you can think about it as your place to shine, like the sun. The Sun is considered a mild malefic planet because when it comes in close contact with other planets, it tends to burn them and affect how they and their indicators manifest in a person's life. In the same way that if you go out in the middle of the day and you stay in the sun for a couple of hours, you will get burnt. People with a strong or a well-placed Sun are natural-born leaders. It's fairly easy for them to assume responsibility. They typically have good levels of confidence and healthy self-esteem. Also, other indicators pending, they're likely to have good health and project confidence. A weak or ill-placed Sun can indicate somebody who suffers with their self-esteem, somebody for whom it might be difficult to find and claim their place in the world, somebody who at the same time can suffer from a lack of confidence, but also suffer from narcissism. A person who has a weak or ill-placed Sun in their birth chart can also have problems with figures of authority, like they might disrespect their manager, or they might have some anti-establishment views, or not trust the government. Moving on to the second luminary, the Moon. The Moon is connected to all things mind and your inner world. The Moon shows how you see the world, how you perceive it, what your experience of it is. It also shows how at peace you are with yourself, with others, and with the world in general. Think of the Moon as your own filter of reality, sort of the glasses through which you see the world. Moon is also connected to our emotions and our mental health, but it's important not to confuse the Moon's connection to the mind and mental health with Mercury's connection to the nervous system, logic, and intellect, which is something we're going to cover very shortly. Since the Moon is connected to emotions, it also represents a person's intuition, their empathy, their ability to feel and to relate to what others might be going through and feel in their lives. Moon is the divine feminine aspect of the universe, which is why it is connected to motherhood and anything that's related to it. Moon is the planet that indicates your mother. It is the planet that is also connected to your childhood, to nutrition, to your ability to nurture and care for others, to your ability to relax as well. Moon's nature is very feminine, and the condition of the moon in your birth chart will reveal how in touch you are with the feminine aspect of your personality, regardless of whether you are a man or a woman. While moon represents the mother most notably, it also represents other women relatives and mother figures in your life, like your mother-in-law or your grandmother, and to women in general. The sign that is occupied by the moon in the birth chart will reveal what are the qualities of your mind, like through which parameters do you see and do you understand the world. And the house where the moon is placed in your birth chart will reveal an area of life that nurtures you, somewhere where you can really relax, be yourself, somewhere where you can recharge after a long day, week, or year, and really just something that nurtures, fulfills, and sustains you with mental energy. The moon is one of the planets in the birth chart that can be either benefic or malefic. And to decide which influence it's going to give, you need to look at the phase of the moon. A bright moon that is more than half full, waxing or waning, is going to be acting in a more positive way, whereas a dark moon that is less than half full, whether it is waxing or waning, is going to bring more negative results into a person's life. Someone with a strong and well-placed moon in birth chart typically has a good relationship with their mother. They're very calm. They're somebody who's very caring, nurturing toward others, somebody who's very at peace with the world, somebody who's not necessarily in a rush to go out and prove something to someone, but somebody who's rather more comfortable to nest and live in of the circumstances that they have. Whereas a person who has a weak, afflicted, or ill-placed moon is likely not going to have a lot of empathy and have difficulty relating to others, have difficulty with the relationships with their mother, as well as understanding, processing their emotions, and dealing with them. This is a person for whom it might be difficult to relax. In some more severe cases, this person might even have psychological disorders. Now, let's look at the 5 planets in the solar system that we're reading in Vedic astrology, starting with Mars. This fiery planet is connected to our physical energy, our drive, our initiative, our stamina, and our ability to be a self-starter. This is the planet that allows us to take action and get things done. Mars is also known across many mythologies as the god of war, and Hindu mythology, that Vedic astrology is connected to, is no exception. Mars represents themes of courage, anger, fight, aggression, conflict, and frustration. This is the part of you that is like your internal warrior, your ability to handle or initiate conflict, set and protect your boundaries. Mars represents a very physical aspect of ourselves. Being connected to our physical energy, it is connected to our stamina, our strength, our willpower, as well as our sexual needs in biological sense. Because of all of this, this is also the planet that signifies sports and athletics. And if you look at the charts of many athletes, you will see that a lot of them will have a very notable Mars position, often dominant or strong. People-wise, Mars indicates siblings, especially the younger ones. And the zodiac sign in which Mars is placed is how you take action, while the house where you can find Mars is the area of your life that is subject to a lot of conflict, something that can generate quite a bit of frustration and dissatisfaction in your life, as well as an area of life that has a lot of activity going on and where you show up and show your initiative. Mars is naturally a malefic planet, and when it is associated with a house or other planets in the birth chart, it tends to bring quite a bit of conflict, anger, frustration into those life areas and to the indicators of these other planets it might be connected to. When a person has a strong Mars in their birth chart, this is somebody who easily takes action, somebody who has a proactive stance in life, somebody who takes initiative, somebody who shows up, gets things done, finishes things, doesn't leave them. This is also somebody who has an ability to protect themselves and protect their boundaries, somebody who can handle conflict in a healthy way. Also, somebody who's likely fit, or somebody who likely has good relationships with their siblings or just has siblings in their life. Now, a person who has a weak, afflicted, or ill-placed Mars will have very low energy levels. It'll be hard for this person to do anything to manage their energy. It'll be hard for them to stay consistent, to finish what they started. It might be hard for them to protect themselves. They might show behaviors such as passive aggression because they might be a bit cowardly, and it's difficult for them to openly take a stance and say that you're not happy with something, and it's just not the way to do things. It's also possible that they don't have any siblings, or if they do, they might be a source of problems in their life rather than happiness and satisfaction. Now, let's move on to Mercury. This is a planet who is related to communication in all its forms, as well as information processing. Anything in communication and information processing realm is Mercury territory, which includes language, speech, writers, translators, editors, voice. This would also include all media outlets like journalism, radio, TV, magazines, or social media. Information and communication are both intellectual pursuits, and Mercury is the planet that is associated with intellect. Intellect as in our ability to learn things, to memorize something, our curiosity, and our ability to gather knowledge about different subjects. In this way, Mercury is also related to learning. It should be stated that Mercury's learning and Mercury's knowledge has a bit more practical edge. Mercury is the planet of knowledge that is very street smart, that is very applicable to a specific skill. This is the planet that has this savvy and clever quality. Mercury is also related to our ability to express ourselves clearly, as well as our logic, our critical thinking, and analysis. You might already pick up that the theme here with Mercury is mental stimulation and intellectuality, which is also why Mercury is a planet that is connected to the nervous system, and it can get very easily overstimulated. And if it is afflicted or weak or comes in contact with many malefic planets, then this can show somebody who can be very scattered, very easily overstimulated, and somebody who can struggle with different disorders of the nervous system. Mercury is the curious part of you, the one that thirsts for knowledge, for information, for new facts, for intel. That is why Mercury also indicates learning and knowledge. But Mercury's knowledge is more street smart. It's more resourceful and savvy. It's the kind of knowledge that helps you build skills, not the kind of knowledge that helps you sit and theorize about a lot of different philosophical concepts, like it is the case with another graha that we'll look into very shortly. This resourcefulness and practicality aspect of Mercury also connected to commerce and trade. People-wise, Mercury doesn't indicate any really significant people in your life or any immediate family members, and is more connected to people outside of immediate family. You can also consider Mercury as the indicator of friends and communication in a person's life. The sign that is occupied by Mercury is how you process information, as well as how you express yourself in way of communication, while Mercury's house placement indicates an area of life that we find very interesting, something that ignites our curiosity, somebody that we like to learn about, and somebody that we like to talk about as well. Mercury is another planet that can take on a role of either a benefic or a malefic planet, and this depends on who it is associated with. Now, if Mercury is placed in the same sign or is in mutual aspects with a natural benefic, then Mercury takes on a benefic quality. But if Mercury is associated with exclusively natural malefics, like Mars, then Mercury starts acting in a slightly more malicious way. Mercury has this very adaptable nature, and its expression in a person's life tends to imitate the planets it gets associated with in the birth chart, which is why it is important to consider whether it is affiliated with natural benefics, malefics, or a mix. Somebody who has a strong and well-placed Mercury is somebody who is able to articulate themselves very well, somebody who can joke a lot, somebody who is very pleasant to talk to, somebody who has a lot of contacts, and who is very smart and intellectual. Also, somebody who has these like street smarts and who is able to be very enjoying and smart with the way that they arrange their life, their business, or other areas. A person with a weak or afflicted Mercury likely has trouble expressing themselves. They might suffer from defects of speech. They might struggle with just articulating their thoughts very clearly. They might find themselves at a loss, not knowing what to say when they really need to say something. Somebody for whom it is difficult to study, retain amounts of information. Somebody who has poor memory or doesn't have good logical and analytical skills. This can also be somebody who is prone to anxiety, who has difficulty focusing attention and staying on track for one item at a time, as well as somebody who might be prone to tell lies, white lies or otherwise, but nonetheless. Moving on to Jupiter. This planet also indicates learning, but in a different way than Mercury. While Mercury indicates the capacity for learning, as well as more practical, applied, and skilled type knowledge, Jupiter represents a very formal and official type of learning. It is associated with higher educational establishments. This is your university degree type learning. This is the highest, most official form of it. Jupiter also represents more theoretical subjects like philosophy or the law. So Jupiter's learning is less practical and applied and more theoretical, more inspirational. This is the learning that can be associated with wisdom. One of the biggest themes for Jupiter is spirituality, and specifically traditional forms of spirituality. Jupiter indicates a person's faith, their relationship with religion, and other very traditional things that are related to spirituality, like religious rituals and sacred scriptures. Jupiter's role in the celestial org chart is that of a teacher of the gods, which is why Jupiter indicates figures like rabbis, priests, counselors, ministers, consultants, teachers, university professors, and others in that priestly and consulting-like occupation. Jupiter's influence promotes optimism, righteousness, and this desire to do the right thing. This is the most idealistic, the most righteous, the lightest and most charitable part of us, the one that shows our best qualities. So the zodiac sign that Jupiter finds itself in will manifest more on the positive side in the person's life, unless it is additionally afflicted by malefic planets. Jupiter has a whole array of positive meanings, including luck, prosperity, wealth, expansion, and opportunities. And the house of the birth chart that Jupiter occupies is the area of life where you're likely to experience a lot of blessings, a lot of luck, opportunities. Generally, this is a part of your life that is generous with opportunities. And you might experience it has some sort of a streak of luck. In the birth chart, Jupiter represents children and grandchildren, as well as our teachers and mentor type figures. And Jupiter's nature is exclusively benevolent, and it provides a lot of support to planets that it gets associated with, and can even provide a saving grace with its influence. A person with a strong and harmonious Jupiter is somebody who has a good sense of right and wrong, somebody who is driven to do the right thing, somebody who always tries to stay optimistic, who has very idealist views about life, who has a strong sense of justice, strong morals, strong values, and really tries their best to behave with integrity. They also typically have a lot of respect for law and for religion. They might be blessed with great children and have wonderful relationships with them. Now, if a person's Jupiter is weak, ill-placed, afflicted, or is otherwise not feeling great in the birth chart, then it might show somebody whose morals might be questionable, somebody who doesn't act with a lot of integrity, somebody who has trouble with the law, somebody who might lack faith, somebody who doesn't believe in God, who doesn't believe in religious canons. This is somebody who might also be very dogmatic and very stubborn about their ways of life, and somebody who might really like to give out advice, even and especially when they weren't asked for it. This might be somebody who might not want to have children, somebody who might be greedy, and somebody who might recognize and act out of material and even materialistic parts of their life. Now, let's move on to Venus, whose biggest meaning is love and relationships. And while Venus in particular shows our karma and karmic patterns that have to do with love and romantic relationships, as well as our sexuality in a sense of our ability to experience pleasure from it, Venus is also the indicator of all relationships, including business relationships, friendships, and your ability to build really any other interpersonal relationship with anybody. Outside of sexuality, Venus is also related to all other forms of sensual pleasure, like our ability to enjoy good food, beautiful music, our ability to see and admire the beauty of the world. Venus is the indicator for beauty, luxury, and craftsmanship. Things like fashion, perfumery, dance, music composition, drama, and other arts are all things that are within her realm. Venus is also connected to finery and really luxurious items like luxurious vehicles or villas, spa centers of relaxation, and just really luxurious experiences overall, as well as jewelry, fine art, and other really luxurious things that we can experience in life. The main thing that the Venus indicates in the birth chart is spouse or partner, which is true both for the male and the female birth charts. However, the position and the condition of Venus can also indicate a person's relationship with femininity, their respect for women, and their ability to build relations with women and not just with men or those of opposite or same sex. Venus is the part of us that craves pleasure and love. The sign that it is placed in the birth chart will reveal how we experience love and what are the things that we need in a relationship in order to feel loved and happy. Now, the house that Venus occupies is the area of life that we give most of our love to, and this is where it's important for us that there is beauty and pleasure and manners and tact and romance and just this overall pleasurable experience. Like Jupiter, Venus is only benefic by nature, and its association with planets or houses typically provides a very good influence for these areas of life. Now, somebody who has a strong Venus is likely somebody who's very charming. This is a person who will be very tactful, will know how to say things in a nice way, not to hurt another person, even if it's something difficult to say. This is somebody who is very skilled at building relationships, somebody who knows how to compromise and to achieve this harmony in an interaction of individuals. This is also somebody who has a good sense of taste, somebody who's cultured, somebody who has good manners, and more often than not, also somebody who is physically attractive. Now, if a person has a weak or ill-placed Venus, this typically shows up as poor taste, somebody who tends to let themselves go, who doesn't understand beauty, somebody for whom it might be difficult to relax and experience pleasure. This might also just be somebody who lacks a sense of tact and can say something really hurtful or mean, whether they mean it that way or not. And also, a person who has a weak or ill-placed Venus might encounter difficulties in building relationships, friendships, but most notably, of course, romantic relationships. Now, the next planet I want to talk about is Saturn, and Saturn's main indicators are hardships, delays, and limitations. Saturn is strongly associated with a theme of time, and this is a theme that typically manifests in the lives of those who have a dominant Saturn in their chart. They might be somebody punctual or somebody who's very not punctual and whose relationship with time suffers. They might also tell you that it takes them time to achieve something, that things in their life take time to happen. Patience, discipline, and perseverance are three qualities that are very Saturn-like. And those who have a dominant Saturn in their chart will tell you that at some point in their lives, they've had to develop those qualities and embrace them into their philosophy. Time association here also means that Saturn represents the elderly, age, and longevity. Saturn's themes are not pretty. This is the planet that indicates loss, grief, obstacles, delays, depression, and fear. Its influence often manifests like detachment from worldly affairs, stoicism, and a life rooted in minimalism and with this very harsh and strict outlook. What I find very interesting is one of Saturn's indicators is service, which means service industries, but also service in a more general service to society kind of way. And for this reason, Saturn is also the indicator of a career, which is your service to society, and Saturn can really make somebody very successful over a long period of time. In the birth chart, Saturn also represents our grandparents. Saturn is this harsh critic part of yourself. The sign that it occupies shows the qualities that are maybe very difficult for you to develop or to embrace, and the qualities that really, like fine wine, only mature and you're really able to embrace with time. The house that Saturn occupies shows an area of your life that is likely subject to the most delays and limitations, as well as an area of your life where you do something out of a sense of obligation and not something out of the want to do it. It probably should come as no surprise that Saturn's influence on a house or another planet typically brings a lot of delays and limitations into the associated areas of life. If you or someone you know has a strong and well-placed Saturn, then this person likely has has a very good relationship with time. They can be patient and punctual. They know that things take time. They're able to plan their time efficiently. This is also somebody who can be described as disciplined, perseverant, and humble. You might also find that this person is rather hardworking, and they might have a slight emotional detachment from most areas of their life. Somebody who has a weak or ill-placed Saturn typically doesn't have a very good relationship with time. They might be always late, or they might be impatient, or they don't understand how much time they need in order to get something done. They might also be prone to darker and more depressive moods, especially if Saturn is associated with the moon in the birth chart. Last but not least, let's talk about the lunar nodes, Rahu and Ketu. Now, if you're completely new to astrology, especially Vedic astrology, you probably have never heard about Rahu and Ketu before. I will be making a video where we'll talk about their origins and their meanings in more detail. So in this video, I will only cover some of the main indicators that Rahu and Ketu are associated with. Rahu, or the North Lunar Node, is connected to everything that is foreign and progressive. This includes foreign airplane travel, the space, the internet, crypto. It also represents all things artificial and things that aren't natural. Now, this includes a very large number of things in the modern day life, anything from something as simple as a light bulb down to more complex, progressive and hype subjects today like red light therapy or even something like IVF. Since Rahu represents things that are unnatural, it's also associated with poison, and that's why Rahu is the indicator of alcohol, drugs, and other substance abuse and addiction. Rahu's influence makes something unusual, unorthodox, blown out of proportion. Rahu is a boundary breaker. It promotes dissatisfaction, this feeling of never enough, this perpetual need for change and seeing what is out there. For this reason, outer space is something that is also related to Rahu, because this is something that is very alien and out there for us and our life on Earth. Rahu's influence creates delusion or illusion of the house and the area of life where it is placed. This is the area of life that is prone to extremes and is also a subject to our most ambitious desires and temptations. Rahu and Ketu, the South Lunar Node, represent our darkest sides. You can think of them as our own inner demons that torment us. Rahu and Ketu are always placed opposite from one another in zodiac signs. So if one is in Aries, another one is in Libra. If one is in Scorpio, another one is in Taurus, and so on. And the signs that Rahu and Ketu are placed in tend to manifest in extremes, pushing the person to find some sort of balance between them. In many ways, Ketu is very similar to Rahu. It also represents things that are foreign. It also represents things that are poisonous, like alcohol, drugs, and substances. And it is also related to delusion, but it manifests in this very particular way of a really strong tendency for escapism and being completely out of touch with reality. The biggest difference between the two is while Rahu signifies a person's most potent material desires, Ketu is the graha that indicates detachment from all the worldly and material affairs. Ketu is purely spiritual and mystical in nature, and Ketu is often what promotes this spiritual experience in a person's life. Now, if Rahu is a large and densely populated progressive city like Dubai, then Ketu is the top of the mountain somewhere in the deep dark forest that nobody ever stepped foot onto. Where Rahu drives ambition and creates desires for a person, Ketu creates detachment, this almost philosophical view of things, and desire for solitude and introspection. Rahu and Ketu do not represent people in your life in the same way that other planets do, and by their nature, they're exclusively malefic. It doesn't matter whether they're strongly or weakly placed in the birth chart, their position will still indicate where a person might struggle with their own inner demons and where they might be prone to extremes. In any way, they create illusion and warp reality for a person in the life areas associated with the houses that Rahu and Ketu occupy. Now, this concludes a look into the planets of Vedic astrology. A lot of this will make more sense as you learn more about the zodiac signs and the houses and put these meanings together to start forming interpretations like the Lego building block. It's also worth noting that every single thing in the universe is in one way or the other is associated with different planets. So while I can't give the list of everything in the universe, what I have shared in this video are some of the more classical and common and universally recognized indicators as related to each planet in Vedic astrology. There will also be other videos in this series where I will talk more about how planets associate with one another, as well as how to define their strength and how to analyze their position in the birth chart. So be sure that you subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss upcoming videos. Thank you for watching.